Tuks FM 107.2. It's about now.
This is Tuks FM 107.2, and I am Kopano Bukholani. So excited to be with you now. I think one of the blessings about being a campus radio station is that we get to speak to the people that you want to hear from. And today we have the man at the very, very top, Professor Tawana Kupe, who's the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Pretoria. Thank you for joining us, Professor Kupe.
Thank you. Good morning, Kopano, and how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Actually, that's the very first point of departure. We've been doing a series called Mental Matters, and basically at the beginning of every episode, we ask whoever we're interviewing how they're doing. So, Professor, how are you? How are you mentally? How are you emotionally? How's your day? How's your week been?
I think I'm fine. Of course, the pandemic of Corona, COVID-19 has not been easy on all of us. So in my position, I had to worry about a lot of things, including all of you, and then remember to worry about myself later. Yeah. So I've been quite fairly like everybody else, stressed and so on. But it's also true that I understood what the situation was. I could not afford to be indulging in excessive stress because I had to think about how we move forward. Yeah. So I settled into a particular routine and was able to get out of that mode of some degree of paralysis, but not all of it. I think I could see it coming, so I wasn't like totally shocked.
Yeah, when it came,
up in my mind. So, but also I found that sooner than later, my executive assistant, Diana, was telling me, because we come to the office a bit now. I come because there are things I have to do from here. She said to me, no, but you have accelerated since the pandemic. So I said, oh, really? I didn't realize.
Thanks.
because also my belief is that we shouldn't get the pandemic should not get us down. We should actually be active. And I think we've been one of the universities that actually visibly active out there online and in all sorts of platforms. And I hear from the competition in town and elsewhere. So that's how I feel like.
That's good. You spoke about having to sort of adjust and find a routine of some sort. How has your day changed now that you are back at the office a little bit, but sort of working between home and the office?
Yeah. So there was that period where I also didn't come here for a couple of months or more, or came only once to get some things or have some things done, like when I came to do the virtual graduation. So I decided that the best way to actually survive and thrive during the pandemic was to more or less, not exactly at the same time, because you don't have to travel to the office.
Yeah.
If I'm working from home, but not to wake up too late or to work from bed. I work from my office at home, but I would wake up, shower or bath, and dress like I'm dressed today, and leave the bedroom and go to the office. And then around 5, I would finish and change into casual clothes, and be at home. So that helped me focus me. But also, it is true that I was having a lot of online meetings of a formal nature. So I couldn't be rolling in bed in my pajamas and come there. So, like I saw some people there doing, or just wearing a shirt, a tie, a jacket, and nothing else. I had proper formal shoes and everything.
Oh, wow.
On the tie. Yeah.
Okay.
Today I'm slightly underdressed. I don't have my tie.
It's okay. You're with us today. That you are. Be comfortable. I'm glad that you're actually not wearing a tie. So with that being said, a lot of students have been saying that they've been eating a lot more now that they have been at home. Have you found yourself reaching for the fridge a little bit more often than you should?
Not quite, because I kept the same schedule. My schedule is, I like a packed schedule to use I have a lot of energy at this point in my life. So in fact, sometimes I was finding that I because I woke up at 10, 15 minutes too a little late and then dived into the office that, I missed breakfast or there were meetings through lunch or I did email through lunch and so on. So I wouldn't say I've had more food than was necessary or more than I usually do. But perhaps, if you look over since day one of the lockdown, I saw yesterday on TV, they said it's day 175. So I might say, perhaps evened out sort of, but not eaten more than I should. Well, I'm not the kind of person who weighs themselves every day or every month.
Yeah.
I normally take my weight when I do my annual medical checkup. I did one for this year. I did one just before the first day of the lockdown, and so perhaps I should pop at the doctors again and have a look. But normally my weight hasn't fluctuated for the last 15 years, and I'm perhaps not that responsive to food.
All right. I wish I could say the same, but
I live the Tuks life. This is Tuks FM.
September is a very special month for South Africans, but also at UP, because the 18th, which is today, is UP International Students Day, and the 23rd of September is Heritage Day. How do you plan on celebrating these 2 days?
So I think there is a plan for an online event for last year. Remember, there was a resuscitation of the physical event that used to happen, but it stopped. So there was even a competition. My recollection of these things, where I work, for my job, I have to remember 100 things at the same time. But I remember approving an online event of one kind or another. This is what we do these days. But we're now in level 1 as well. Not that we should get too excited and take risks. We could do a hybrid because UP is a hybrid university. We are able to do both things online as well as complement them with contact. We could, if we chose the right capacity venue, social distancing, mask, and so on, have some people physically on campus, especially those who have been allowed under the 66%, 100% or whatever. And those who are far off could actually join online. So we'll see. There will be an event where we try to be innovative. You saw what we did with the Choose UP Day.
Yes.
It was a live show online, and actually more people watched than we would have allowed to come to the physical event, even in normal times.
Yeah.
So I think you can be sure that we're going to, UP always comes up with something creative and innovative. On Heritage Day, we are reopening the Javits UP Art Center, which has been closed like all others. So on that day, and remember it was opened on Heritage Day last year. So on the anniversary, it won't be closed. It will open again. So we get to enjoy the second relaunch. Yeah.
It's like a mini rebirth of some sorts that we're going through on campus. So now we're going to go to the more serious stuff. You did speak about the fact that a lot of changes have, been made throughout the year. The hybrid learning that we sort of, were expecting as UP students to come over a few years had to sort of be pushed into fast forward motion. Could you please explain, especially for everyone that's watching, sometimes we don't really understand the dynamics that go into the decisions that executive has to make. So what is the sort of decision making process that UP's executive had to sort of go through in order to get to where we are right now?
Yeah. So remember, just once we got into the pandemic under the National Disaster Management Act, we all lived under the family meeting that the president would call. And then post the family meeting, Auntie Nkosazana will show up on the TV.
Yes.
Regulations are, and then the uncle is also followed. Saying, in this sector, the uncles and the aunties, they are the younger aunties. Then they would come and also, tell us how we should behave. So what we did as the UP executive was two things were important to us. How do we save the academic year to the extent you can under the national disaster and COVID regulations? Second, how do you also make sure you don't leave any student behind? So what we'll do also is Prof. Duncan would consult with the deans and they consult with their heads of departments. Prof. Mosia would consult with the SRC, hold virtual meetings with them. Then Prof. Anton Stroh is acting vice principal for research, would also consult with deans, researchers, and others. Because we're trying to make sure that as far as possible, everything that we do happens. And then after those consultations, the executive will process all of the information. Early on somewhere, I think during the hard lockdown, I decided that we at UP should have an integrated COVID-19 response plan, which would be, if a regulation or a level was passed, would look at what we can do under that level and do as much as we can. So for example, under level 4, at some point, they say certain research that supports certain industries, agriculture, forestry, fisheries, and others, could be reopened and medical students in their final year could come. So we had anticipated that in our COVID UP response integrated master plan. So we brought in as many students who needed to do lab in the research in the lab, in support of those industries. We brought in the medical students. We at UP also had kept behind some students, some international students and students. We said it would not be conducive for them to be home. It was about 300 or so. So, but also when the other levels came, the first level was where they said you can bring 33% of the students. Then we said who would benefit most academically and otherwise for coming back on campus. So we allowed those people back. Now we were doing level 2. But now it's level 1. Yeah. And under level 1, strictly speaking, you can bring 100%. I know this is very complex because, and also I heard from some of the SRC members, the president, that some students don't believe that like they can come back to campus fully to finish the year. So strictly speaking, and we're discussing this, so I'm just being open with you. Don't go say the Prof, the VC announced the following. We're still discussing. I think it will make sense to continue online because some students even checked out of race in the various levels and decided that they will spend the rest of the year at home. So it will be very hard for them. It will actually be very disruptive for everybody. But people will be allowed to come in, like say, to use particular facilities, laboratories. If you are doing community engagement or stuff that you need to touch something and be in, there will be a permit system to allow you to actually come in, like we've done with the other levels. So if you like, what we've been trying to do is like sort of say, what are we allowed under the regulations? What would benefit students most? How do we save the academic year and also leave no student behind? So for example, if you remember, in the first phase, we said we would resume on April 20, but we postponed by 2 weeks to 4 May. The reason we did that was that some students didn't have laptops. So we decided under the no student left behind that we can't start with so many students without laptops. And so many other students, even with a laptop, had no connectivity. So we had to make a plan for them, which was send hard copy material and provide telephone tutoring. So if you like, those were the calculations we made. 2 principles, save the academic year. 2, second principle, leave no student behind. And third principle, of course, the COVID principle. Do not endanger anyone by, bringing too many people into the space and then leading to a spike in infections.
Yeah.
I have focus. I have drive. I have Tuks FM.
You spoke about the different, people that played a role in terms of inside the university. But now we've seen how, for example, the Department of Higher Education would say academic year will end in 2021, but the University of Pretoria would be like, no, we want to try end it this year if possible. With that being said, how does the Department of Higher Education and Training affect the decisions that the UP executive makes, or even the other way around, if possible?
Yeah, okay, good question. So under the South African law, universities are autonomous institutions. In other words, they are not a department of the Department of Higher Education and Training. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. So we are not like schools. Schools fall more directly under basic education, right? Mm-hmm. Principals can be told what to do by the minister. I'm a principal, as well. Remember, as Vice Chancellor and principal. Yeah. But I'm not a principal that can be summoned to the minister's office to tell me how to do things specifically.
Yeah.
What they do is to provide policy and regulations. We have to operate within the ambit of those policies and regulations, but we enjoy what is called institutional autonomy. So it's not independence, it's autonomy, because we're a public university.
Yes.
So the people who make laws or regulations inside the university is the university council. It's like the board of a company. Those are the people that, how the department influences council is that the minister has a right to choose 5 members out of the 30-member council. Not that they come there and say, the minister told us to tell you to do this. No, once they join our council, they are council members.
Okay.
But in a sense also, they, if you like, sensitize. And this is not, you will never hear, if you came to the council meeting, you wouldn't tell who is appointed by the minister. People speak as council members. But also they've been chosen also by the minister to be people who understand universities, understand society, and understand higher education policy and regulations. So there was a relationship, right? And so it went further under COVID because these were special circumstances. They also produced templates where we reported on certain things. Just in general, we reported to the Department of Higher Education and Training on a number of things. The number of students we enroll. Remember, we get our money, 2/3 of our money comes via them.
Yeah.
And the money has to be accounted for. And there are formulas in which how it is accounted for. So the number of students at UP, for example, is an agreement we sign with the Department of Higher Education and Training. It's not that we just can do our own thing, but we can choose, like we're a faculty of Vet Science. We're the only university that has.
Yeah.
We have a degree that is based at the JAVIT. That is our choice. It's not the ministry's choice. But also we have to then tell them, this is the degree we want to do. This is how it will work. Then they say, okay, no, this is something that is needed. You will get your subsidy for this degree. So there is that kind of, if you like, complementary, mutually beneficial relationship. They have an oversight role. If things go very badly wrong, that is when the minister can say, well, the VC has to be removed. We will put in an administrator to be in charge of the university. The council is dissolved. But that is only in very extreme circumstances.
Okay.
By the way, we also lobby for certain regulations. I've been lobbying to bring in students who are not having good situations at home. I've been lobbying to bring international students back and so on.
I personally didn't know that because, oftentimes you do think of university as like how school is set up, where if the department says this, then it works for the school as well. But to know that there's a sense of autonomy, from the university side, and who we should be listening to is the university's announcements. that makes me feel better. We sort of touched on this a little bit earlier on, but just to reiterate in case somebody missed it or anything like that, students coming back onto campus for the rest of the year. So 2020, there's been a lot of speculation in terms of exams. Students are panicking. Students are like, I don't want to write, like writing on, online and sort of writing offline are two very different experiences. You did say earlier on that you don't want to necessarily disrupt the rest of the year, but is there any likely chance that, for the rest in 2020, we will be writing exams on campus, or will it depend on the different faculties and so forth?
Yeah, I think the latter will. So remember what controls us still is that the virus is still hanging around.
Yes.
And is still infecting people. So there are situations that are called super spreader events. It's when large numbers of people congregate in one space. That's why, for example, even under level 1, spectator sport or people will not be allowed to go in person into a stadium or a space venue, although that sports will happen. Is to prevent a super spreader event. In the context of universities, the following can be super spreader events. 1, people crowded in large lecture rooms doing contact studying, or people crowded in labs and not in small groups. People crowded in the Rembrandt Hall writing exams, sitting, 30 centimeters apart.
Yeah.
That would be a total super spreader event.
Definitely.
You would find 2/3 of those people could actually be infected. Then there's a super spreader event that you guys like very much. going to parties in large numbers, in confined spaces, your masks dropping and you just stamp on them when you are drinking and so on and so forth, and all sorts of things happen thereafter. I'm not going to go there. Super spreader event. So what we need to do, remember, is that we must save lives and save the academic year. However, it is also true that when it comes to exams, there are some exams that are best done physically.
Yeah.
So there, what we'll do, we'll make plans that that exam is not a super spreader event. So if it was to be written by 500 people, there might be, 3 groups in, now remember, under level 1, you can use 50% capacity of a venue.
Yes.
Rather than 50 people. So if you found that, so a class of 1,000 people doing economics 101, normally economics 101 is like that.
Yes.
That group might be divided into 20 different groups in large enough rooms to do a physical exam. But perhaps economics 101 is not an exam that needs physical presence. It's one of those that are very good to be done online.
Yeah.
So we're going to make very careful decisions, balancing. Would the students be better off doing this exam physically or not? If that is the situation, how do we ensure that the health regulations are observed? If the exam is easily done online, the student is actually in Cape Town or in Durban or lives and was not even enriched, why endanger them by putting them in taxis, driving, in trains, to come to a university into a super spreader event? That is not actually wise. So next week we will ask the DIA, Department of Institutional Advancement, to send a notice to say to everybody, by next week we will be clear, because Uncle Nzimande hasn't yet announced. We should do.
That's very
and I
true.
don't know. I was very busy yesterday, and our eldest aunt, Dr. Nkosazana Zuma, hasn't spoken as far as I know. And she's
So
in
all the
charge of
aunts
the
and
national.
uncles are just keeping quiet. We're waiting for them.
I'm quite sure she's working on the regulations, because this is very complex as well. I mean, this is unprecedented. And also remember, we're dealing with an invisible enemy. It looks like right now there are not many infections. But have you seen if you listen to the news yesterday, the World Health Organization is worried about Europe, that the infections are going way up again.
Oh no.
In the US, same situation. In Michigan State University, which is a partner of UP, 342 students went partying last weekend. Well, no, not more than 3 perhaps. They don't know how many, but 342 got infected.
Oh no.
At the University of California, Davis, they decided to have physical classes. They had to close down again when people were getting infected in those. So we're still in a very danger zone. We should act with care and be cautious. We must all emerge in 2021 alive and able to do what we want to do.
That's definitely the mission. Speaking about 2021, personally, as a final year student, and I know all my final year students are also very are wondering about this. You spoke of the graduations, the online graduations that had to happen earlier on this year. Do we see our graduation happening online as well? Or how will lockdown or the state of disaster continue to affect graduations for this year's class and next year's class?
No, next year we should have physical graduations.
Okay.
But depends on the trajectory of the virus, because we don't know. For some of the top doctors who I know, Prof. Shabir Mahdi, Glenda Gray, they tell me that the virus won't be gone in 2021. Might not be as severe, but remember they keep on talking about the second surge. Yeah. So, but we're hoping that it will be like under level 1, which means UP is very interesting. We graduate the largest number of people. This year, we graduated, at least in the graduation, the first online graduation, 11,000 people. There's another grad coming now. I think it's nearly another 2,000 people. So normally we hold our grads over a whole month and we have 32 graduations. Now we might have to have 3 times the number of those graduations. I'll be doing nothing but graduations if we do them under health regulations. So I'm trying to show you, but if you ask me what are you aiming for, what do you want to do? Physical graduations, people on the stage, people ululating, and I making a speech. That's what, and also we want those guys that didn't graduate this year, we want to do their graduations as well.
I'm sure everybody will be very pleased to hear that. So the class of the matric class of 2020 coming in next year, we recently just had open day, which was quite the success. But will these new students be able to experience orientation as we went through, or is it also another, we have to play it by the ear, play it by infection rates and so forth?
Yeah, no, I think of course we have to watch what the infection rates are, but if there are no infection rates and it's safe to be on campus and all of that, first prize, physical orientation, as usual. So the only thing that will prevent us doing that is if it's so severe that we are now under some kind of, we've been taken back to level 2 or level 3 or something of the sort.
Yeah.
But we're planning for physical orientation the usual way. As far as possible, barring the virus being vicious on us, we're going back to how we do things, because at UP, we are hybrid deliberate. No, there are certain things that are best done in person, physically, contact. And then there are some things actually we are learning now that are more efficient, easier, and teaches junior skills if they are also done online. But we are not here the kind of investor which believes in 100% everything online. No, that doesn't work. That's not an education. We also don't believe in 100% contact. That is a bit more 20th century. Yeah. We believe in something like the hybrid is the 21st century going forward.
Tuks FM 107.2. It's about varsity life. It's about now.
October, which is soon coming up, the year is running by very fast. But October is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I know that as a Vice Chancellor, mental health is a very big issue that we deal with on campuses, on all the campuses. It affects all the students. How important would you say, or how would you say the awareness of mental health has changed your approach to life? Are there things maybe when you look back at your university career, you're like, whoa, like if I had learned this earlier, if I had learned this in a certain way, maybe my mental health would have been so much better in that space. So yeah, how important would you think, mental health is, especially for the university space?
It's very, it's very important. And I've spoken to various groups, including men down in the council chamber here and others. And also I spoke at Dr. Precious Moloi Motsepe, did a webinar early on during the lockdown.
Yeah.
And there were supposed to be there were 2 vice chancellors, but the other vice chancellor of the other university down in the Cape, I'm not mentioning which one, didn't stay long in the webinar, so I was left on my own talking about mental health. When I went to university, to be quite frank with you, mental health wasn't such a big issue.
Yeah.
And also, I remember talking to some students saying that it's now very different, I understand. During our time, the peer support was huge. People looked out for each other much more than you guys do, I'm sorry to say. So, and also we did a lot of direct, we did a lot of direct communication. The social media does not actually help necessarily, because it's a double-edged sword. Some people use it for peer support, and in fact, UP uses a WhatsApp group platforms also for peer-to-peer support. But remember that also social media is a double-edged sword. That is where people actually tear each other apart, spread rumors as quickly as possible about each other, some of which are totally false. Yeah. And it makes some people become like, I don't want to talk, I don't want to do anything, because people are going to be like spreading stuff about me on WhatsApp and so on, and on all sorts of social media platforms. So it's now become important to strengthen institutional capacities for mental health, but also one has to take regard into what kind of society they are and what kind of mental health issues it raises. As you know, in South Africa, we have a problem that violence is too high of all kinds. For women, gender-based violence of all kinds, and that university students are not immune to that within the university and out in society. And then also, for many students, especially who are coming from a black background, the history of apartheid and also the fact that there are such inequalities today in South Africa is the most unequal society in the world. Financial pressures also layer in another, other stresses that call mental health. And then also the transition from high school to university. And also it's another pressure, I feel like. So there are so many layers of pressure that cause mental health issues that we can't simply leave it to people supporting each other like we did when we were in high school. Because it's a society under such multiple and layered pressures that institutional as well as personal measures need to complement each other to do that. So everywhere, I mean, I was at Wits before I came here, and I was responsible for some of those things. We were beginning to build and seek expertise because remember there was that period 2 years ago where across all universities, suicides were spiking. We still have suicides today, but not as in large numbers as 2018 going back.
Yeah, 2018.
In those years, in each university, there were at least 10 to 12 suicides a year. And those were the ones we knew about or where people died. Because people with suicide, people don't understand with mental health. Some of it occurs unnoticed, unreported. And some people try and perhaps take their own lives and don't succeed. And that's often called suicidality, as the experts told me. So that's too high an instance of that. And what that does is that when a person commits suicide, we lose a potential, a young life with huge potential who could have made a contribution in society. When people even do not manage to take their own lives, they don't succeed, it impedes their progress and actually affects their potential. And it's also costly to them and their family and others. And also just generally spreads unhappiness. And when others are depressed, it percolates into the atmosphere. So it's one of the crises that we have to. It's like, pandemic is a crisis, GBV is a crisis, mental health and well-being. Mental health is also a crisis, and we need to get into the space of mental health and well-being, which will enhance people's potential to succeed. So it is something that's foremost in my mind, and it's in all my presentations and also about what we're trying to do about it.
I live the Tuks life. This is Tuks FM.
You did say there are a lot of layers in terms of mental health or like the things that are pressures, and these things not only affect students but also executive as well as staff. How do you encourage the executive and the staff? I know we've also had quite a few engagements with lecturers and professors, and they're all saying, as much as it was a transition for us, I think as students we are sometimes a little bit self-centered, and we forget that our lecturers are humans. And we also forget that they also have lives, they also have things that they are dealing with as well. So how do you encourage the staff and executive to be aware of their mental health? And finally, sort of just to make it like a two-part question, what advice would you give to students, staff, executive with mental health issues, not just now in lockdown, but just in general for life, how to sort of try approach things so that they can continue being the better version of themselves?
So one thing that, first part of the question, one of the things that surprised me, because in a university, there's lots of emails that go out. Some of the stuff is just automated. So after a while, I noticed that almost every week, this email comes about mental health and wellness. So in fact, I looked at it, then I was going to pick my phone and phone the HR people and say, can you just switch off that email since we're not doing this in the lockdown? Then I decided to open it first. And I found, no, it was not just an automated message. It was actually giving advice to a lot of people during the pandemic. And it comes every week. And normally those kinds of, and I think it's instructive that it's sent out every week. And there are sessions, some of those sessions are actually done online or advice to where people can get help. I thought that was quite impressive because after a while, I thought this is really irritating. Somebody is sleeping on the job. People will complain that, why are you sending me emails about a service that is no longer on offer? because of the lockdown.
Yeah.
It turned out I was pleasantly surprised that I was wrong and it was happening. And then also I could refer to it in that webinar. So to then transitioning to the second part of it, and I would include the content of what's in this email, is that, as you know, mental health and wellness is not just a mental thing. It's not an in-mind thing. It's social, it's physical, it's financial. So my advice to people is that first, I think that diet is the first starting point. And also here, one mustn't reflect just their privilege. There's some people also who are food insecure because of their family circumstances and the earners. So think of our colleagues who work in security or who clean our rooms and offices. They don't earn as much as I earn, as we know, and even what the lecturers earn. And they might have large families supporting an extended family. But to the extent that they can get healthier foods, and often, fun enough, healthier foods are cheaper than the more junky foods. People do not realize. So having the kind of correct diet, resting, exercising, and all of that is the first frontier against stresses. Because mental stresses often are a reflection on the stresses that are on the body and your circumstances. So one of the things that we should try and do is promote, mass exercises, walking. Last year I'd wanted to do a monthly walk at lunch on Friday. I only did one in spring, where we could all at lunch drop everything and just walk around whatever campus we do, just for an hour or 45 minutes. Because people do not realize walking is one of the best exercises, not pumping iron in the gym and then paying a lot of over 100 rand a day or a month for it. Most good doctors will tell you, and that's my most favorite exercise is just walking in the neighborhood, not even running, just walking. I get tired of walking, so I run part of the way, walk part of the way, and then do other exercises. So it's important that people realize that mental health or mental stress is a reflection of other things. What you eat, how you rest, and also the amounts of exercise you have. And then, of course, engaging with others, the degree of the social engagements you have, which come with their own stresses. If you have an auntie that's always lecturing you, or an auntie that is always working their finger, that might not be necessarily healthy for you. And then also this day, the other thing we should try and deal with is regulating our social media. Because now you find, if you go into restaurants or even in people's houses where people are sitting as a family, but everybody's on their phone. And some people even communicate in the same house through their phones. One is in the next room and one is in the WhatsApp each other. That is that's not really.
That doesn't make sense.
That because you have. Yes. But have you seen in restaurants, there's a whole family, they came to dinner together, but everybody's on their phone. Why did they not just stay at home? That each in their room. So I think communicating, improving our social interactions is what I'm trying to say, and making sure that the technology is to enable you to do better what you could do on your own. It's not the dependency that you couldn't do it without the technology. And then, of course, what people consume in terms of media, whether it's radio, television, or whatever. I mean, binging on soapies and American series all of the time, not mentally healthy in my view. And I'm a professor of media studies. I know you need a diversity of images. You need to talk to real people. You need to watch different things. You need to listen to Tuks FM and not just your favorite station and music. But just generally, you can see I'm talking about diets of different types, whether it's physical, social, health, and all of that, and exercise will improve people's mental health. And also taking time when you feel totally stressed is very, very important as well. And then, of course, for us on the management side, people must look out for the people that they manage. And for those, for the students and others who are representing others, they must be sensitive to what people are saying, the pressures that they face, and try and represent it to the authorities or to whoever. So it's a very complex situation that, so the person must take also responsibility for their own mental health, but those that manage or oversee the people and create environments must create enabling a nurturing environment so we reduce all of the stresses that face people.
Wow. Thank you so much, Professor Kupe. First of all, for taking time out of your very busy schedule. We know that there's a lot of things that you need to worry about, but really do appreciate you coming on here and just telling us a little bit more about the UP decision-making process, what we sort of can expect for the rest of the year. Hopefully, and we just now know that we should just keep fingers crossed for physical graduation and physical orientation. And thank you so much for all the work that you do. I know that it's a very unappreciated job. So thank you so much for just always being at the front line, being such an effective communicator. I think for me personally, one thing that I've realized is that when I speak to my peers that are in other universities and they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what's going on here. And I'm like, I know what's going on in my university. I know, there are communication streams, and we really just want to thank you for all of that. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's what Tuks FM is the best radio station among the campus stations and in the league of the commercials. So yeah, yes. I'm proud of that and proud of you guys. Yeah.
Thank you. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you had a good time and that you've learned a lot. And yeah, that's all from us. Bye.